I want to start with a bit of an exercise. We have our phones with us, right? Can anyone go to YouTube and tell me how many subscribers KTN's channel has at the moment? KTN's YouTube channel, just shout it out. How many subscribers do they have? Anyone? Go on, tell me. What is the start date of the channel? Can you check? (2008). When I joined the company, this was around 2009, there was an interesting incident we had with management. At the time, management decided, you young people, we were the kids back then, you young people are spending too much time on Facebook. Way too much time. Facebook, YouTube, these are all distractions. You're here to be print journalists, you're here to be TV journalists, why are you wasting time on social media? And at the time we argued, fiercely, we argued, look, this is where we are consuming news today. If your entire focus is assuming that people always have linear, they're going to call it linear programming, right? You're going to have appointment viewing at 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. indefinitely, you're going to lose that argument. Management at the time said, nah, we're blocking access online. You guys sort yourselves out. We're not paying attention to this, right? That was 2009. Now, if you look at what's happened with media revenues in the decades since, let's use Nation Media Group as an example. NMG revenues peaked in 2013, 13.3 billion shillings that year. Does anyone want to guess what their revenue numbers were last year? Anyone? $6.3 billion. So in the span of about 11 years, the annual revenue of the largest media house in East and Central Africa has been cut in half. But the very things that managers back then were saying, well, you millennials, you're wasting your time there. Why are you spending your time on Facebook or on YouTube? But today, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of these platforms are not just eating our lunch, they're eating our attention, they're eating our eyeballs. That's the scale of change that we're talking about, and it's massive, right? But that's a scene setter from my end. That's how dramatic change has been from our side. We're going to give our panelists an opportunity to introduce themselves, tell you what they do very quickly in 2 minutes, and then we'll get into the heart of the conversation.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sam K. Mwangi. I'm the CEO of Social Meds Digital. We're a digital marketing agency helping our clients connect with their audiences on social media. Yeah, and it's good to be here.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Freddy Mulli. I'm the founder of Youth Plus Africa. And Youth Plus Africa simply bridges the gap between talent and opportunity, particularly for young people, young professionals. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be part of the panel.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Patricia Okelo. I'm an entrepreneur of 25 years and a co-founder of Kayana Create, which is a community of female entrepreneurs. And we come together to support each other through sharing, mentorship, and just building each other to be competitive entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Samantha Kipury, and I'm the co-CEO of Dentsu Kenya. We're an advertising agency, and we do everything from creative, media, advocacy, tech, a really massive span of capability. And I'm just here to speak with this amazing panel and share some insights around how our industry has evolved. I believe it's the most interesting, exciting career you can choose. I see a few lifers here in the audience who have been in this industry with me. Really looking forward to connecting with you guys on this panel and thereafter.
Okay, Patricia, I want to start with you because the people part, right, of managing this transition that we're seeing at the moment in the media industry, communications, advertising as well, from my perspective, is probably one of the most challenging ones because we get into the business and we're like, yeah, but I'm a print journalist, right? Or I'm an agency lifer, right? We've always done campaigns this way on telly and on radio and on print. How do I reach audiences on TikTok and so on and so forth? What's the thing that needs to happen to change mindsets, especially at scale? Because at an individual level, we can probably do it. It's difficult, but we can do it. But changing cultures in organizations is really, really challenging.
Thank you for giving me one of your many difficult questions to answer first. And I think many people on this panel can also add to that. So my background is as a graphic designer. I don't know if that even exists anymore with the changes now with AI and the use of Canva. But in my days when we started, I started as a graphic designer and was a graphic producer actually at NTV. You're one of the first employees there, just to date me a little bit. And at that time was just the beginning of the change in the use of tech, because a lot of those days in advertising, we would actually sketch and draw our storyboards and share them. And organizations like NTV now are huge, and they could invest in more modern equipment for us to do, storyboards and kind of like, I would say, graphic work for television. So we were really in the phase of that where 3D was becoming a thing, etc. And when I graduated from uni, that's the first job I got. Now, just to date me even further, is when I was in KU doing graphic design, there was nothing like computers. I don't know if you can imagine an era where you were doing design work with no computers. So really, I've been fortunate to have seen that whole transition happen in terms of my career. And we had to teach ourselves all graphic software, Adobe, anything that's being used today, we had to teach ourselves that, so we were not taught any of that in university. So I think I've been fortunate in being taking a front row seat when there's change happening, and possibly I'm having a mindset of this is what's gonna happen, and you have to just move with the program and do the work that comes with it. Fast forward to starting my own studio, and had all these ideas of having all these designers in one place and having multiple talent, being able to deliver below the line work for advertising companies. Also at that time is when many large companies were not paying large retainers to advertising companies, and suddenly below the line and having smaller studios do their work became the thing. So also in the deep of that and seeing mindset changes. And still, when you go to pitch to large companies and you're telling them, oh, I'm coming from Willard Productions, they're like, who's that? And many times when you're starting, as Njugush has just said, you're the everything. You're the designer, you're the client service, you're the everything in the organization. And so having very little faith, and you kind of latch on to people who are more modern thinking and understanding that times are changing, and you move with those. But the biggest change for me came during COVID, when work from home became a thing. And remember now, a lot of the expensive tech hardware became very affordable especially for designers who had worked for a long time. They were able to get access to high quality, like Macintosh computers that before that they had to come into the studio to use, but now they have, laptops that can do the same work. And for me, that was the biggest, I don't know if it's the mind shift of me as an entrepreneur or of the team, but the designers were able to work very well from home, and so I couldn't bring them back into the office post-COVID. And so had to have a complete shift on what am I offering customers now, because I can't manage. People were like, oh, we can manage designers, they're so unpredictable, etc. But now they were able to do it really from home. And I think for me, the mindset shift really comes from leadership and being able to believe that the teams can deliver even when they're not seated in the room with you. So when we talk about people, I think the change really does come from the top, and being able to believe that if you can identify talent and you know that they can deliver, your role changes more as a sort of a mentor in ensuring that they reach their full potential, as opposed to making that talented individual change for you. And I think that's what I could say in terms of change of human resource in an organization. For me, that's what I have seen is the biggest part in change.
Samantha, I saw you nodding quite vigorously, agreeing with her line of argument.
No lies detected. Everything she said, I completely agree with. I think, just from my perspective, in sort of navigating this flux that we're in, is really just understanding that people haven't changed, right? People And audiences look for content that's interesting, that's engaging, that's educational, that's entertaining. It's just how they're accessing it that's changed. But the core of what people need and what they consume really hasn't. And to be honest, it never will. It's just the how of it, right? So now it might be devices, it might change to glasses, it might change, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's interesting, kinanjugosh. That's what people want to hear and want to, sort of pay attention to. So in the same way that audiences haven't changed, business and brand problems also really haven't changed. They always want to connect with audiences. They want to build engagement. They want to create loyalty. They want customer lifetime value. So again, that's not changed. And I think what we've managed to do as an agency is really focus on the things that haven't changed and find out the new way of connecting. And that's what we did with the Dentsu School of Influence. That really was a response to knowing that there are a lot of really creative young people who are online and are just not able to monetize their careers. Right?
Tell us how that works, because I remember seeing the launch of it,
yeah.
And I was thinking, oh, hang on, this looks kind of interesting, because the traditional model when we got into the business was, I'd walk into the Radio Africa or the KTN newsroom, and I know sales guys are going to be on that end, and that's either direct sales or agency sales. But now in an environment where you don't have to come to us as media, you can go directly to Jungush, right? Or you can go to Peter's Instagram profile, right? Because he's got X number of thousand followers. I mean, it changes the way you have to sort of approach, right, the delivery of the products, doesn't it?
No, absolutely. And that's why I said it's really about the how. The how is what's really changed dramatically. And what we did as a business then is, like I said, so you have a lot of young people, super talented. They've created really great small communities on their channels, and they're able to connect and share, but they're not able to monetize that. And then you have brands on the other side who really want that connection, who really want that engagement, but have no idea how to connect with these people. And even when they do, sometimes it's not so successful because these young people don't really understand what's the brief? How do you do a contract? What does this clause mean? If I'm just not feeling inspired, can I just hop off and be like, you guys go with your brand, it's not that sexy anymore. So there was that tension between the two. So the School of Influence is basically a free program for the influencers. Of course, we have partner brands that help us bring it to life. But you have, last time we did 100 influencers, and we really take them through a really intensive program covering everything from, like I said, understanding contracting, understanding how to brief. We have brands that come on and speak about devices and how to really use that. We had Meta and TikTok come on board to speak about how to hack the algorithm, because that's also something they grapple with. The algorithm changes so much. So how to really make sure that your content that's great is really being put out as best as it could be. So a really intensive program. And then at the end, which was one of the main goals, is actually to connect them to brands. So I'm really happy that out of the 100 that we had, over 40 of them are currently working with brands in the country. So our second one is happening. I'm doing a shameless plug. Our second one
we want all the shameless plugs today, all of them.
Is happening in Q1 2026. That's when you have the second cohort. But again, that's just an example of realizing that even if the problems really haven't changed, how to connect with audiences has, and you really do have to remain agile around that. We can't just sit back as an agency and be like, it's all. You really just have to get on the ground, see what people need, where the gaps are. And there's always opportunity. I feel like tech always, after some time, does create new careers and does create new jobs, sort of in the long run. It's just that pain in between where you sort of have to figure out, okay, how do we do this? So not to get lost in the transition and the pain of that, but just know that the outcome will be good and figure out how to navigate the opportunity.
In 30 seconds, if you could, I want to put this to both you and Patricia before I come to the gentleman. How do you manage that fear that sometimes comes up from change? Because I've seen this in my line of work, right, where we can see audiences literally shifting, right? Audiences will go to TikTok, they'll go to YouTube, they'll go to Instagram. You can see revenues dropping. And you come to the office and you're seeing retrenchments day in, day out, and you keep wondering, do I have a future in this, right? So from a leadership perspective, how do you manage that fear?
You want to go first?
You have to be willing to be teachable and accept that you don't know everything. and a hunger and a thirst to learn. I think that that continuous learning becomes extremely important. While indeed, and it is true, that AI is going to make some jobs redundant, including jobs that our parents used to love to tell us to do, including law. Some jobs will become completely redundant, but there are new jobs that will also be created. And I think the role right now is to educate yourself and on the trends and what's happening, and use the knowledge that you already have to be relevant in those areas. And being an expert, even in a very niche area, will be something that's extremely beneficial. So for me, I don't worry too much about the change, but I worry if I stop having the hunger to learn. And I think that's where the problem will be. And now there's so many micro-learning opportunities, be it on YouTube or anywhere else really, where you can learn and be an expert in a field. Yeah.
One of the more interesting things that comes along with this job is you end up picking all kinds of random little bits of info along the way, and experiencing it firsthand. So 2 examples. 2018, went to a trade show in China, and at that point in time, they had this demo where they effectively had an AI TV anchor, and they were feeding scripts into it, and it would essentially just deliver the scripts in a fairly straightforward, anodyne way. And that was 2018. At the time we looked at it and thought, yeah, interesting tech demo, not sure if it'll actually happen. Fast forward to 2025, Google VO can actually do really convincing videos, right? So my end of the business is in a bit of trouble. But more interestingly, in terms of what the Chinese market is doing, is they're integrating AI into all sorts of places that you probably wouldn't think about. So for example, if you're in Shenzhen, cross the street when you're not supposed to, the light is red, sort of things that we tend to do here a lot. Facial recognition systems will essentially recognize that it's Freddy who's crossed the road. He shouldn't have. The light was red on his part. And he will get a fine pretty much instantaneously. Cash comes out of your M-Pesa and we'll get a notification saying the local authorities have fined you XYZ because you jaywalked, right? And that sort of agentic AI application is where I'm going to come to next, because you really teed it up for me nicely, Samantha. The fact of the matter is these AI systems are now much more accessible. They're in place at the moment. Opportunity, threat, or is the implementation still problematic? And we're still trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work.
I think that in itself presents the opportunity. The novelty of it, at least in the Kenyan market, I think it's a chance to learn as quickly as possible, but then also recognize what will be phased out and what will become the new norm. One thing that I enjoy to do very often is going on the job placement platforms, Indeed and the like. And you actually see what kind of opportunities different companies are looking for. And you'll be surprised to learn, for example, a role for someone to input prompts into AI platforms. You're getting paid up to, $400 a week. That's about $1,600 a month, which is incredible.
That's a prompt engineering, I think they call it. Right?
Yes. And something that's what seems like an entry-level AI equivalent job, I think is what we need to begin orienting ourselves towards, because yes, it is here and I don't believe it's going anywhere. I think if anything, it'll become more reinforced in our daily routines, both professionally and personally. And so I think definitely opportunity more than threat.
Sam, same question to you, but then the extra layer I want you to cover as well is, what does that then do to the entry-level positions that we used to have, coming into the industry, come into advertising, start in copywriting, come into the media industry, you'd start probably as a sub, probably as a field reporter, etc. What happens to all these entry-level jobs that ostensibly our generation had, but might essentially be replaced by AI?
So thanks for that. So many good things have already been said on this panel, so I'll pick from some of the things that I've heard. One is what Samantha said, that ultimately when change comes, especially technological, it always leads to creating more opportunities down the line. And a personal story that I will share that then will loop back to your question is, I really connected when Jugush talked about when he went on Facebook, his mom was telling him he's wasting time.
Are you mad?
Yeah.
Unafanya nini huko?
Because personally, I was in campus just till around 2015, and I was studying actuarial science. So for those of you who know that course, it can be quite tough. But then I was those people of, I've always been good in math, so I don't think I'll struggle in actuarial, but I think university is the one place that humbles you, or rather, it humbled me. And I got to realize that just the fact that you've always been good at something, if you don't pay a lot of attention, it will go down. So when I got very interested in the social media that was coming up around the time when I'm still in campus, my grades plummeted, and my mom knew that I was spending a lot of time on Twitter, and I had this business idea of starting a company that helps businesses connect with people on Twitter and Facebook, because I thought it was a cool thing. And just the same when Jugusha was being told, I was being told, when I'm a Twitter maku, okay, so I'll translate. That means you and your online things, you're wasting time, it's not gonna go anywhere. But then when you look later down the line, or maybe we hire 10 to 12 different careers in my agency, and one of them is TikTok creator, and one of our TikTok creators has a TikTok certification from TikTok itself. So I'd say, as these platforms progress, they create new opportunities, and it's all about just being humble enough to go and learn. And I think, looking back to the other question you asked, how do we manage the fear? It's by knowing that everything that we're doing, we have to have the humility of it's not here to stay. Everything will keep moving. Like the time when the Wright brothers came up with an airplane, and they said that we can put a piece of metal up in the air and carry people. Nobody believed them. And even 6 years after they had done it, people would see it and say, it must be like a weird bird. That can't be what those guys said it was. But further down the line, it always creates opportunities. Like if online was shut down, a lot of businesses, for example, even Samantha's business, would be either out of business or really, really reduced. But because the internet is here, it has created so many opportunities. And I'd say because AI is here, it's all about just being keen and being humble enough to know that there's always something that you can learn.
We've all mentioned a common thread, I think, that's coming through in the conversation so far is, we need to be able to learn, unlearn, relearn skills, right? But education's expensive. Who's footing the bill? Well, companies foot that bill. As entrepreneurs, should we be putting our money where our mouths are and saying, well, every quarter we're going to put in cash towards covering whatever tuition courses our employees want to cover, as part of that ongoing process of continuous professional improvement? Should we be footing the bill for that retraining?
I think that's a really compelling question, and I think for people choosing to sort of start out in their careers, that's what I would say, is really look for places that invest in you from because everyone wants that coin, everyone wants to make that money. But I think in today's environment, I think really look for where you can learn. And in terms of who should really be footing the bill, I think if a company can, I think global agencies and people in my field, I think that capability is there because they're able to sort of stretch a certain program across different countries. So where that's possible, yes. But like she said, there's so many free things on the internet where you can actually learn. The micro-learning, little courses, there's a lot of free stuff. If you just spend a lot of time just sort of looking at it and looking at the different things that sort of are part of the role that you're considering, I think you'd be surprised at just how much you can get at very minimal, if any cost, really. And then I just, sorry. I just wanted to touch on your other question around fear. I think because I started this agency at 25 with about 3 years experience, so fear has been, sort of my buddy for a really long time. And I think it's just feel the fear and do it anyway. Just do it. People, you might get beaten up about it. If you're a first mover, it might fail. There's all these other things, but at the end of the day, and that's what he said, and then Jugush, I think what I took out from his story is all things work together for good. It might look really crap in the short term, but at the end of the day, everything you've learned, everything you've been through, everything that looked like it was a mistake, everything will work together for good. So just rest on that and do it anyway.
And in any case, those things that might look like crap now, essentially just stepping stones to something better. There's always a lesson embedded in any of those. Anyone else want to weigh in on the training question?
Yes, Ramah, I don't know if there's anybody here, you probably have the data. But at the beginning of the year, a report came out that shared how much time Kenyans spend online. Did you see that report? Yesterday, I was alerted. So when I read it, it was about 3 hours and 40 minutes, and it was the highest in Kenya. But a new report, which apparently came out in July, says it's 8 hours. We're not paying any of these Kenyans to spend that amount of time online. So I think money is not the issue when it comes to upscaling. I think it's more an attitudinal thing. And this is how education is changing so much from outside the classroom, is as an individual, how are you tapping into what's happening around the world? And you have a role to play. It could be a passive role or an active role. And if you want to have influence and you're young, then you're going to keep continuously investing in yourself. And I think that is really where the currency is, in the ability for an individual to think that beyond the circumstances that they have and they see now, to there's something bigger. And I think the wonderful thing that technology has done is, and in young people, we don't see the world, and I'm saying we, meaning the young people, a millennial, we don't see the world as just what is in Kenya. The world is truly the world, yeah? And as a result, for you to participate in that world, it is up to you as an individual to tap into that. The education, it is free and it has been democratized. So it's really up to you. Yeah.
Sam, Freddy, do you want to weigh in on that question?
On the training, I agree with everything that they've said, but I also do think education is tiered. There's that education that you can learn on your own, on YouTube, which, I mean, all of us use YouTube to learn one skill or another.
The University of YouTube, as we call it.
Yes. But if we're going a level beyond that, if, for example, any of us are in business and we're calling ourselves an innovative business or a tech-savvy business, then I think we need to put our money where our mouth is and actually prove that by investing in the people that are part of your organization, part of your institution, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that have a role to play in the output that you're giving to the market. And yes, the initiative and the incentive to learn on your own will get you far, but I think we need to be a bit more intentional in going a step or two further ahead and investing in our people to improve the quality of our output.
Yep. I'd also like to weigh in on that question of who is meant to make this investment, because all this change is happening and we need to learn about it so that we can adapt. I think I'll just quote Warren Buffett when he said, the best investment you can make is in yourself. Ultimately, it has to start with self-drive. I'm pretty sure for what Gush learned in journalism school versus the kind of videos he's doing now, there's a lot of self-learning that he's had to do to get his skill to where it is. And the thing is, when you start doing something by yourself, it now, I don't know if you've heard of this, of when you start moving towards something, that thing starts moving toward you. So when you start moving to, let me try and learn about this AI because there may be something that I'll find out, as you progress in that hunger, then if you don't have the money, a scholarship will come up in your radar and you'll see about it. Or, and any entrepreneur can relate that if someone comes to you within your organization and they're saying, I want to do this course, but it's costing this much, I want you to find out if I can be supported in this way, even if it's outside of your normal education curriculum, you will definitely consider it, because when it comes from within, then it's much more potent than when it's imposed upon you. Yeah.
We're going to come to the audience to questions, or rather open up the floor to questions after my next question to the panel. A common thread that I hear this year, last year, 2023, from entrepreneurs, from managers, is just how challenging it is to run a business in the country at the moment, and for multiple reasons. In some cases, it's a tax policy, right? It's tax administration. It's finding talent, it's getting clients to pay on time, etc., etc. And it varies, right, from one sector to the next. I want each of you to give us, your current big challenge at the moment. What's keeping you awake at night, and how are you dealing with it? Do you have a solution to it? Do you not have a solution to it? It's an entirely open-ended question. What's keeping you awake at night? Do you want to start?
Well, thank you for giving me that question first. It's a very easy question to answer. I'd say, yes, business has its ups and downs and its challenges here and there. For my business, I'd say what keeps me up at night, although most nights I have a really good sleep, is...
You're one of the lucky ones.
Yes, I'm able to just fall asleep at will most nights. So I'd say it's collections. So for anybody who's run a business or you've even tried to sell some things to your friends, even Jugush had a collection issue and he said he got paid 5,000 and he did the work and he thought the 45,000 would come even after he got an LPO on the second gig, 120,000, and he did the videos and then there was no collection. So I'd say that's the challenge. What I'm doing to address it is I'm interacting with other people in my space, other people running marketing agencies, and just finding out how they're tackling it. And yesterday I came across a very interesting way of doing it. But yeah, more or less that's the biggest. In terms of tech,
what's the solution that you guys came up with?
The solution is there's a gentleman that was invited to speak before you then brought the panel, and he talked about...
The AI guy.
Yes, and he talked about how there's someone in town and he helped him through WhatsApp, etc., etc. So basically to systemize our collections, because B2B business is very relationship heavy. So you tend to try and tackle most of your problems through relationships first. But if you tackle them through systems first, so that's what my friend from another agency yesterday told me, that they've systemized their collections. Every Monday and Wednesday, there's some messaging that goes out to specific people who have certain invoices, and then on Friday you're getting calls. Then on the Monday, if the response was not good, someone is coming by, and they're not coming like an auctioneer. They're just coming to say hi and where's my money?
So that's the invoice of ours.
Yes, exactly. But now you see that is a relationship way. Now imagine mixing that of Niaje Boss invoice yetu to sort plus a systemized way of doing it. So they're getting emails and texts and the relationship bit. So I'd say that's the biggest one for myself for now.
At the house is pretty similar, and there's this phrase we used to hear in class in Accounting 1, cash is king. And time for the exam, you can explain it well or you can demonstrate it in a book of accounts. But when you're in the trenches of entrepreneurship, cash being king will slap you in the face. And you'll understand the importance of cash flow cycles, the importance of scenario accounting, the importance of... So just for context, we operate throughout the year, but our year usually ends or is marked by one huge event. This year we were lucky to bring in Vusi Tembekwayo along with having about 36 other speakers. Very cash-heavy, cash-intensive event. And we thought we anticipated our certain cash positions and had different scenarios, but clearly that didn't play out in reality, because when you're doing your planning internally and you're dealing with the market, you have to understand or you have to anticipate for things that are out of your control. And that still keeps me up at night, because I think we are at the process, or we're at the phase where we're focusing on sustaining what we have before we can then scale it. And the two can't happen until we've been able to find that secret formula. So I don't know if anyone has figured it out. If they have, please let me know. I'm willing to get the answers to cash flow management in 2025 in Nairobi. I'm lucky that I know someone sleeps well. I'll need to ask Sam his secrets. But yeah, those are our two current headaches and challenges we're trying to solve.
There's an opportunity there to put a shameless plug for, if you have sleep problems, purple tea from one of our partners at the moment. Patricia.
Purple tea makes people sleep.
Well,
okay, anyway.
If you're not caffeine, if you don't have a caffeine problem.
Yeah, there you go. For me, what keeps me up at night is a real systemic problem when it comes to financing female entrepreneurs. Maybe 3 months ago, the newspapers, the dailies, had a headline that banks were holding 1.7 trillion Kenya shillings worth of collateral in the form of land. That may be, okay, 1.7, all right, yeah. But what actually that screamed out to me is how many women who do not have land as collateral due to cultural systemic issues can then not unlock finances from the bank. And you may think this is a problem that is changing, but I can assure you, even with the myriad of wonderful women products, that it remains the same. You will access finances up to a certain point, and then at one point you'll be asked for a fixed asset, and at one point you're going to have to look for a male person to help sign the document. Simply because even if you've been given, for example, 5 or 6 acres to farm of land in an ancestral home, very likely you don't have the title deed for that. And so things like agency become a really big deal. There was also another LinkedIn post that went viral where somebody was saying, why is it, as a VC fund, that when I'm funding an entrepreneur, a female entrepreneur who's highly intelligent, highly educated, and when we finally have to sign the papers for the deal, she will say, I need to get back to you. And more often than not, she's going back to ask somebody at the back who's most probably male. So that is also a matter of agency. So these are real issues that even if I'm working really, really hard and I need to unlock capital, and it's even happened to me as late as this week, that's why I'm speaking with such authority on this, where I'm looking for a facility, and at the end of the due diligence process, they're like, we're 97% there, but we just need this, we have a query, you know? And it's really discouraging for somebody who's been in business 25 years, where I still have to go back and I still have to answer questions that you think that my track record would be, you know, fine. So for me, it's a real issue. And I know people are like, oh, we're all about the girl child, but really when issues are so deep and systemic and are so difficult to change, we cannot stop talking about them. And of course, bringing along, and my husband has been fantastic in this. He's my co-founder and he will finance anything and will be the guy going there. But not all of us have the luxury of that positive male figure in our lives. And as a result, we see a lot of stunted businesses that cannot move beyond really being really tiny businesses and are not able to move forward simply because of unlocking capital. Yeah.
Samantha?
What she said is so sobering and so true, because I have a lot of friends, entrepreneurs, and that's exactly what they talk about every week. I think for me, there are two problems. Anyone in business, it's cash flow. I don't want to repeat what the gentlemen have said, but cash flow is a real thing. And I think for us, one of the things that's just really helped us is diversification, because different sort of products and services have different payment cycles. So that diversification has helped us hugely, instead of that sort of end of the month pain that you have to deal with when paying suppliers and trying to sort of collect. So for sure, cash flow. The second thing for me is that around unemployment. I think the latest statistic was that 76% of Kenyans between 18 and 25 are unemployed. And that for me is such a frustrating figure, because you travel, you meet people, and by and large, Kenyan young people are some of the smartest, most hardworking people that I've had the pleasure of working with. So for me, programs like the School of Influence and things like that, it's not just, a business thing, it's a real passion, because the more opportunity and knowledge people have, the more autonomy they can get. So for me personally, what I always think about is how can we get more young people to work and to have access? So those are the things that I think about at night.
All right. This conversation isn't just between the 5 of us on stage at the moment. So if you've got any questions that you'd like to put to the panel, now's the opportunity to do so. So just raise up your hand and we'll get a microphone to you as rapidly as we can. Okay. There's actually 2 questions over there. Actually 3. Okay. Let me start here. So just stand up. Tell us your name, brief introduction, and keep it short.
Good afternoon. My name is Ezron Siglai, and I'm an entrepreneur. And I have a question to Freddy Mulli. AI is changing the way business operates, and what are the challenges and opportunities that entrepreneurs are going to face? And on that opportunities, who's going to benefit more? Is it the employer or the employee? Then a second, for startups that often have limited resources, how can they easily, realistically leverage AI to gain an edge without getting left behind? Thank you. The second question, for startups that often have limited resources, how can they realistically leverage AI to gain an edge without getting left behind? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your question. I think AI is definitely changing work, and it's the reason I keep insisting on both the employer and the employee need to take education, onboarding, training around it very seriously is, take for example, graphic design. We have a team of maybe 3 designers. If we get a brief on a Monday, we usually communicate that we'll respond with drafts by Wednesday. AI will cut that 48-hour period into about 30 minutes. And now the opportunity cost becomes, do I spend 6 months as I'm working and adjusting to what AI can and can't do, and put in that double time and double effort, or do I keep hoping that the 48-hour period will be enough for a year or 2 or 2 years? And after the 2 years, will I be asking myself, what do I do now with this skill that I have that no one needs? Because as much as it's great, I'm doing it in twice as much time, if not more. And changes, which there are always changes with when you're dealing with clients and such, take even longer to implement. So I do believe that it does behold both the employer and the employee. The second question around startups, bootstrap everything you can, even if it means, I think in Kenya we have this idea that you want to call yourself an entrepreneur, but you don't really understand what it means. You've seen someone on TV that looks cool. You've watched Shark Tank, and you've seen someone like Damon John, or you've seen any of the other sharks, and they look cool. And that's just the iceberg effect. You don't understand what lies beneath the surface. Entrepreneurship isn't meant, yes, I do believe that it's meant to be a very fulfilling and a very positive contribution to society, but I think if you're going into it to make money, you better prepare and have the mental and the emotional fortitude, the mental fortitude to endure 3 years of just discomfort and challenge and strife. Because it's not flowery, it's not rosy. It does get there at some point, but you need to make some serious decisions, personal decisions, financial decisions, decisions that affect your family, decisions that affect your friends. I think anyone who is beginning a startup, which I always encourage, but I encourage you to do it with a lot of caution and a lot of nuance around why you're doing it. So I'd say bootstrap as quickly as you can for as long as you can. And when you're ready for that growth, trust me, the growth will take you to that next stage. You won't be seeking out growth. The growth will find you.
Good afternoon. My name is Yamumo Stella, and my question is, we're talking about AI and how amazing it is, which is true, but I'd love to hear about ethical concerns, because in as much as AI is amazing, what is the concern when it comes to the code of ethics? Yeah.
Is that to a specific person or just general?
Yes, again, thank you for that easy question. I'm getting all the easy questions today, so yes. Yeah, there are some ethical concerns with AI, and I think for some of us who are in marketing, and I'm pretty sure everyone here, because you also consume content being marketed, as we all do, pretty sure there was a time when you saw some billboards or some creative work that like someone has like 6 fingers, or when you look closely, the eye has like a second pupil. So that's just to do with AI not being as realistic. In terms of ethical concerns around AI is probably to do with, I'll just tackle one, to do with, is AI taking on a form that is not human-like and kind of deceiving us? Or is it getting to a place where it's blurring the line between humanity and technology? So I'd say yes, the concerns are there and they're being addressed one at a time. One of the ways that such concerns have been addressed is through the GDPR, data protection. This is something that started off a couple of years ago, and it became very strict, and now the information that you give to all these tools and all these platforms, the way they use it is quite governed. So I'd say the risks are there, but it's now to do with how are we especially the users of AI or the people working in the tech side of AI, now using this information in an ethical way. But they're varied and they're being tackled one at a time. Maybe someone can help me.
Yes, so the concerns are real. I think, is it just this week where we saw OpenAI being taken to, being sued by a mother of a child who took his own life. So these are real concerns and real issues. There's an organization, I think it's called the Internet Society, that is pushing towards more governance with AI, but with governments. Now, the thing about it is, how do you trust your government? Do you trust the government to make the right decisions for you? I'm talking about in Kenya, when it comes around governance of AI, and that's the thing. A lot of this is going to be driven by how much faith we have with the governments of our country. But these are things that are really being pushed on a global level in terms of around governance. I think the grandfather of AI last week talked about putting a mothering instinct into AI, and maybe that's what will make it safer. We have, I can't remember which country, I'm struggling, but I know, like, for example, Australia has made the use of Instagram, for example, I think you have to be over 18 now to sign up. So it's governments that have to put in the regulation to protect the users. And the point is, and I think the whole point of AI is the democratization of this technology, and who then do we trust to put in the guardrails? But it's still out there. Kenyans, Kwanzaa, you guys are the highest users of ChatGPT globally. So how are we going to stop you from using it? You know, I think these are real questions that we really need to ask ourselves, and who are we willing to trust in order to put the governance around the use of AI?
Obviously, ChatGPT is no substitute for proper therapy. We do have... No, it has to be said, because one of the interesting things that we do see with a lot of ChatGPT usage, even in this market, is that we'll be up in the morning at 2 a.m. and be like, you know, the questions that really we should be having, conversations we should be having with our therapists, we end up having them with a machine instead, right? So there's that. It's not a replacement for therapy. And two, full disclaimer, I'm not a lawyer, happen to know a few, but the data protection law that we have here, Section 35 of that actually has some very interesting provisions in it, because one of the things it explicitly says is it gives you, as a Kenyan citizen, it gives you the right to not have decisions made based on your data, decisions that would have a significant legal consequence for you, being made in a fully automated manner, right? You can essentially A, opt out for that, and B, you can actually ask a company that's essentially making a fully automated decision to A, disclose it, and B, not to do that. It has to be a conversation or rather a process that's being done by human beings. But you know, Strathmore's got a fantastic legal faculty here. I know some of their former lecturers. So it's a conversation worth having with some of the fantastic people here. I believe there was a second question just directly behind you. There you go. Please ask.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kenneth Baraka. I am a founder of an autism foundation and an entrepreneur. So I have 3 questions, but I think I'll combine them. So my question is not based on business. Probably the second question is a generational thing, based on you guys that are seated there. You guys are millennials. I don't want to say Gen X. Maybe I would have gone further, but millennials.
It's okay. We're geriatric millennials.
Yes. So my question is, there is something that is going on around the millennials and the Gen Z, based on how you guys you think that work needs to be done this way, and there is a way that Gen Z need or want to do work. So I'll give an example. I'll use the Bible. Sorry for this. David, there is a generation that knows how to kill Goliath using swords, but David knows how to kill or wants to kill the same Goliath using a sling and a stone, provided the work is done, right? Now,
kazi ni kazi.
Kazi ni kazi. So my question is, do you think that there is a time that these two generations will accept to mentor the others on things that don't change, and the things that, as long as you're doing work, even if you're coming with Crocs, will still remain as relevant as possible? Hey, I wore a suit because I didn't come with Crocs. I knew I was coming for an important event. So is there anything that can happen towards that? My second question is, what you guys saw as change probably at that time, maybe I've come when Jugush was done, he was saying that you guys were starting off with Facebook. Personally, I don't know when was the last time I opened Facebook. Yeah, and it's for many Gen Zs. Yeah, for us, or let me say for the Gen Alpha, ChatGPT won't be a change for them. It will be something that they've probably grown with. So do you think that there is a way that you guys can probably mentor the Gen Z, Gen Alpha, or the other way around, Gen Z to mentor you guys, because now we are living in this generation? Thank you so much.
Good question. Good question. All right, the challenges of managing Gen Z.
Yeah.
Love this. All right, let's get into it.
So, I really like the David example, a stone, whatever. I think I'll just go back to what I said in the beginning, which is that the what hasn't changed. What needs to be done hasn't changed, but the how has, and has dramatically. So I think I speak for everyone who manages Gen Z, which is that we're open. We're open. We're open to having that conversation, but I think the deadline is the deadline. I don't think that really changes. But how you want to do that, whether you want to work remotely, whether you want to work in the office, whatever. I feel like that's a conversation most millennials are happy to have, as long as the deadline is met. I don't know if any of the gentlemen want to add to that.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Samantha, totally. Millennials versus Gen Z, that's what I've titled the question. And I don't think there's a lot of learning that we have to get from each other, because for millennials and previous generations, work was work, and leaving work was something that was unheard of. You'd go home and tell your spouse, I think I'm gonna quit this job. And they ask you, and go where? But today, a Gen Z will leave a place. Follow me with this example. It's gonna sound bad at first, but it has a good ending. A Gen Z will leave a place because it doesn't feel cool anymore, with no plan B, with no further income, and things like that. So what I've found with Gen Zs is they're very passionate, and when you can tap into that passion, there's a lot of magic that comes out. Because when they're in something, they do it Pro Max. I like to say iPhones have iPhone, then iPhone Pro, then iPhone Pro Max, the highest version. And that's how Gen Zs operate. You remember even the time for Maandamano, Gen Zs would just go you're wondering, do you have the right shoes? Do you have water? Them, they're like, me, I'm just going. Because when they are doing something, they do it with passion. And this passion needs to be first seen and understood. Then after that, it needs to be directed into the right paths. You asked about Crocs. A lot of us marketing agencies allow people to work even in shorts in the office, especially creative team. You can come in shorts, Crocs, nobody's gonna ask you any question. But now when we're going to face people like him, where maybe you're going to boardroom, sometimes there's just a certain respect that comes with, let me respect that you guys are a law firm and you're 100 people and all of you wear suits, so we'll come dressed smart casual or in suits ourselves. So I'd say there's a balance, but in terms of what I've personally seen with managing Gen Z is that they're very passionate. And if you understand that passion and kind of guide it in the right direction, a lot of good things come out of it.
Where are we? Okay, so just hang on 1 minute.
So I just wanted to add one thing. I think what both Samantha and Sam are mentioning boils down to culture and building that culture, because then that culture is important. Whether it's culture in a workplace, whether it's culture in a more private setting in your home. Gen Zs and silent quitting, let me tell you, I don't even know where to start. Unapiga msee simu, it's a Tuesday at 10 a.m. You're like, hi, are you okay? Is everything fine? You're like, yeah. Niko home too. And I'm trying to, because I'm not old, so I'm trying to understand how to, because he's a very talented individual, very, very brilliant. So I'm trying to, is this part of his process? So usiogope kutuambia sometimes, we listen. We don't judge. Just feel free, talk to us, kidogo.
Sorry. The lady has a question at the back. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, hi.
Yeah.
My name is Wambara. I am a certified executive assistant. I also coach EAs and PAs and connect them to relevant executives. Shameless plug. Anyway, my question is...
Do you want to coach millennial managers by any chance?
Yeah, I am a millennial, so I'd love...
Just asking for friends.
Yes, of course. But my question is to everyone. So any of our panelists can answer. What does scaling look like for a service-based business? Most of your businesses are service-based. What does scaling mean to you? Thank you.
Okay. Can I just confirm, what does scale look like for a service-based business?
Yes.
Scaling, like scaling the business.
Scaling your business.
Okay, got it. I just wanted to confirm. I would say growth, and growth that allows you to benefit from the economies of that. That's what I would say it looks like. So growth in terms of revenue, growth in terms, depending on your business objectives, obviously, but in terms of your client base, your revenue, your markets, that's what scale would look like from a service-based business, which is essentially what we are. Where are the most challenges? I would say something happens when you get to 100 people. I don't know if you guys have experienced that. Something happens as you grow, it's amazing, and then you get to 100 people, and then for some reason, real culture problems start to set in. So for anyone scaling, I would say just prepare for that 100.
Can you give us any examples of those culture problems you've run into at that 100 people mark? And how you sort of sorted that out?
So I think he sort of touched on it, because when you're smaller, you're able to be like, so-and-so isn't at his desk, right? Let me give him a call, let me have a conversation. But the more you scale, you have some ghost workers, some people show up, some people don't, especially if you have work from home policies. So those things start creeping in. I think when you get over 100, because sometimes you grow with certain people and you have that culture and it's quite tight. But as you begin to hire from other businesses, then that sort of gets eroded, and sort of politics starts to set in. Ramah's liked because he was here since 2028, whatever. Sorry, 2018 or 2020, we're not there yet. So I think those are the kind of things that happen when you start getting to those big numbers, and they just sort of, I wasn't prepared for it. And that's why I'm sort of giving that little warning around scale. So I think, that's my perspective.
So one of the biggest things, because I run a service-based business, and the thing that really helped us was in terms of partnerships. And the big thing was once we got, we started servicing a client that was regional, it forced us to think, they worked with us. So we were only in Kenya. And then because the work they were doing was East African, it forced us to go into Uganda, Rwanda, and Tanzania. And like now, one of the organizations that we have is doing regional work in West Africa. And so now, like today, we have a team in Dakar. But the thing that really pushes that for me is that strategic partnership of partnering with maybe getting it right first when you're doing it here locally, whatever you're offering, partnering with an organization that will help you scale, because this is just services. And then another form of partnership is working with people like you, as in either same level of you or smarter than you, as in delivering the service. So you cannot be fearful about partnering, writing MOUs with people who are really smart and really doing, hold the same value system as yourself, and are able to deliver work with minimum supervision. Yeah.
I believe for us it would be reach or footprint, because we're a social enterprise and we're mission-led. So it's about how many young people can we positively impact in Nairobi, outside Nairobi, across the 47 counties. Once we're done with Kenya, across the East African region, once we're done with that, across the African continent, how many young people can we positively impact and bridge that talent and opportunity gap to?
Yep. I think we can talk after, because I'm in a similar industry with Samantha, and she answered how scaling looks like. I want to answer what leads to scaling for a service-based business from my experience, and it breaks down into these 4 things. The first thing is referrals. So typically, a lot of us, when you start off, even if you're just a graphic designer back in the day, you're getting jobs from, I've done a good job for him, and he tells his friend, and then I get another job. So referrals is still very big in terms of scaling your business. Then number 2 is partnerships, what she talked about. In 2020, our business partnered with another bigger agency, which led to 297% growth in 2021. So partnerships are very important, as she said. As long as they're strategic and you read the paperwork properly and everybody is going to benefit, partnerships help. Then the next thing is positioning. So what you've talked about is quite interesting, because just 4 months ago, we were looking for someone who possibly you could have trained for us. So have you positioned yourself maybe through TikTok and social media and through your friends for you to be called to speak at places and things like that? Because that will help you scale. And finally is a blanket of online. So the interesting thing in our space, when I entered, I used to ask myself, back in the day, Scanad being the biggest agency, or even WPP globally, I go to their social media pages and they're doing 4 posts a year. And I'm like, why aren't you guys pushing online yet? The kind of pages that you manage are so big. But my experience from then has been that for a service-based business, it's highly, highly based on trust. Because for a marketing manager to give Samantha or to give me their budget, they need to know, if things fall apart, can I trust that they're gonna put things together again so that our campaign flights and our targets are reached? So that's my breakdown for how to scale.
There was a question here. Dr. Rutenberg, I believe. You got the mic, perfect.
I do, thank you. This panel is amazing, excellent job. Well done to the panelists, to Mr. Ramah, to the organizers. And I'm very excited to talk about this topic. I'm Isaac Rutenberg. I teach here at Strathmore Law School, Associate Professor of ICT Innovation, and I've been helping start Kenyan startups for over a decade, hundreds of startups navigate these issues. And so I also teach ICT law to 4th-year LLB students, the top cream of the crop, if I say so myself, in Kenya. And I ask them every year, what's concerning you? How are you feeling? How are you doing? Well, I get a temperature from the classroom. This last year was so different. Everybody was I would use the word despondent. They were just their whole ethos has changed, and they've become much less enthusiastic. And I think it's because of the changes, the drastic changes we've seen in the economy, particularly around AI. Because they know that, as someone said, those jobs are disappearing. AI can do what law students do much better in many cases, if you know how to use it. Which brings me to my comment. I have a comment and a question. Patricia, I love what you said, and I'm going to emphasize that. My students asked me, what can we do to safeguard our jobs? And of course, the answer, you can't safeguard your job. But my answer was exactly what you said. Intellectual curiosity is really the only thing that will allow you to navigate an area where computers can do much of what you do and better and faster. Intellectual curiosity is the only thing that I think is left for us. And it comes also, in many forms, one of which is I see a real problem now with depth of learning and understanding. And so, Mr. Ramah, you brought up the Kenya Data Protection Act, which is great, and Section 35, which is great, but that's a very narrow understanding. And if you go a little deeper, you'll know that protection against automated decisions is almost irrelevant, because companies can get around that with a simple consent form, which none of us read all of the consent terms anyway, right? So they can get around. If you go deeper and you ask more questions, I asked ChatGPT the other day, tell me the top 5 or 6 intellectual property professors in Africa. It gave me a list, one of which I knew isn't a professor in Africa. And I asked, well, what? And I was not on that. And I said, what about Isaac? I said, what about Isaac Rutenberg? And the next answer it said, oh yes, Isaac Rutenberg should definitely be on that list, except he's a senior lecturer. And I said, where are you getting? And then my third prompt was, where are you getting that data? And it said 2018 publication where you're listed as where he is listed as a. And I said, please check the Strathmore website. And it says, oh yes, Isaac Rutenberg is a professor and should be on that list. So it's a depth of wanting to go into and not just accepting the first answer you get and saying that's the answer. That's where humans, I think, still have an edge for as long as that lasts, I guess. So anyway, my question though to you is, there's a proverb that you will never reach your destination if you don't have a one in mind. And I'm wondering, the economy is changing, the society is changing drastically and really quickly, I think in an unprecedented way. And Kenya, what is, in your opinions, what is or what should be our destination, sort of, maybe as an economy, maybe as a people, but there are several models we could be trying to reach. The American model of like corporations rule everything, the European model of we're going to regulate and make sure that people are somewhat protected, but only certain people, the kind of Asian model of top-down worker productivity level, et cetera. Do we have a unique Kenyan goal in mind of what the economy should look like, and how do we make sure that's built into people who are building the economy right now, especially Gen Z?
There's a whole conversation that, it's a valid question. There's a whole conversation we could actually have on that. So I will find you online, or rather offline, and continue that. Does anyone want to tackle this? The philosophy of how do we build a Kenya that works?
I don't have the answer, but I'm going to give an example. Dubai has been importing talent for years, right? And so they kind of know who to hire for what roles. So if you've ever been in Dubai, and it's not only Dubai, but I'll give the example of Dubai. Like if it's in construction, you'll find a certain, country is in that space. If it's in, technology, you'll find there's a certain country there. And the country that you'll find Dubai constantly hiring for from Kenya is in the hospitality industry. And we compete hospitality, Kenya and Philippines. And what happens with the Filipinos who are working within the hospitality industry in Dubai is that the country then created a structure such that the money that is being sent back to their country, it's tax-free. Those the workers, when they come home on leave, are received, with like heroes, because they're adding to the GDP of the country. What happened in Kenya? We have new laws where we're trying to target diaspora funds so that we can kind of tax them here in Kenya. And sometimes I find that's almost and I'm not going to say that the people who are leading us do not know this, because I know there's always benchmarking all the time to Singapore and to Dubai. So they do know, there's a knowledge base. But why do we feel that the only way to raise money is to heavily, heavily tax the people who are already sending money in? So, there's a conversation that needs to happen around that. But to say that maybe one of our nascent talent skills as Kenyans is the way we welcome people. That welcoming, we have it in our homes, we have it as a society where we really understand that when a visitor comes, they come with blessings. So that could be a big part and something that can be tapped into, but that's my thought.
All right, let me just go for it. What needs to happen so that Kenya can move to a certain type of destination that is positive for everyone? Personally, I've always believed that technology will be the great savior of the day. And let me explain. For those this may not be relevant to most of us because I'm seeing a lot of people are under 30 or thereabout, but back in the day, you could not register a business in Kenya before going physically to Sharia house and having some papers done. Then after that, you have to wait. And if you don't know the right person, you could literally be waiting for months before you get just that business registration. But now, with the e-citizen platform, all those middlemen were cut out. Right now, as we are sitting, you can enter and search a business because maybe we've talked about some AI things and you think it's cool, and you come up with a business name through ChatGPT and you search it up, and eCitizen tells you that this business is available, and you pay for it, and it's immediately reserved for you. You can turn it into a limited company, I think in 3 to 7 days, simply because there's still some signatures that have to be put, but you don't have to talk to anyone. So what has technology done for that process? It has removed a lot of inefficiencies and a lot of negative things that are not there for progress. You just gave an example of where in certain countries, if you're driving and you jump a light, money is deducted from your e-wallet because you have been detected, your plate has been detected, and immediately it has dictated that the bill for that is 2,000, and the 2,000 has been removed from your wallet. So I believe the more technology advances, the more it will remove loopholes that allow a lot of impunity to thrive. And technology ultimately, in my perspective, is the great savior of the day, because then it makes it so hard. It's such a big hassle for you to do something wrong in some of these developed countries, because you're gonna be caught at the snap of a finger and the consequences are gonna be real. Yep, that's my take.
If I can just add, it's probably a simplistic view, but I've always felt like whatever systems and policies we have at the country at the moment are very contractionary and very short term. I think the fact that, and I'm not saying it should be longer, but I think because elections happen every 5 years, they're purely concerned about how much money am I going to make in these 5 years, what's going to happen in these 5 years, and there's not a lot of long-term thinking around the policies that are put in place. Just to his example around tax, her example, okay, you tax diaspora, then what happens in the long term? Are they likely to send as much money as they do now? Probably not. Are they going to find different ways to have the money come home? Probably yes. So I think whatever system we come up with, I think just as a universe, as a globe, we can't afford to think about things in the short term. So they're putting a hotel in the middle of Masai Mara. Okay, what happens in the next few years? I don't know what they're doing in Karura Forest. Okay, what happens the next few years? It's such a limited, short-term, sort of contracted view, and it's really, the word used was despondent, and I agree with it. Because if you're not thinking 10, 20 years down the line and the impact that your policies are gonna have on people and on society, it's, terrifying.
It's going to be absolutely chaotic. So just to answer that with... Oh, this one's going off the battery state. Just to answer that without my journalist hat on, it's a problem that some of us have been thinking about in detail over the last 5-10 years for a couple of reasons. So one, when I got into business journalism, my main motivation for getting into that was I got my first paycheck in Radio Africa, and there's this top line number that says that this is your gross income, and this is what's actually landing in your account, and this is what's going to government. And you see the number that's coming out of your account, you calculate that over the year, it's X amount of money, and then you step outside the office, your roads are crap. Your water is not working. You got water 2-3 days a week. If you're a Gen Z now, the odds of you finding a job in the current economic environment are incredibly difficult. Healthcare. Money is coming out of your pocket, out of our employees' pockets, in the name of SHA. But we can clearly see that cash is not being properly utilized, right? They have liabilities of, or rather they have payment obligations of around 80 or so billion shillings a year. What they can only raise, from the math that we can see, is around 50-something billion shillings every year. It's clearly unsustainable. It's going to collapse at some point. But to use the framework you gave us, if you actually drill down and say, okay, well, there's all these stuff that's happening at the surface level, but what's happening below that? What decisions are we as voters making? Are they properly informed? Are we voting for individuals on a basis of ethnicity, on basis of policy? For a very long time, all the elections I've covered, 2007 and everything else thereafter, it's like shouting into the void when you can see the quality of candidates coming through have a horrible track record of managing. And let's be honest here, it's not government money. I hate that phrase. It's fundamentally wrong. It's not government money. It's your money. It's your cash that's being wasted. When these politicians are running around blocking and overlapping you in traffic, they're doing that with your resources, not some random pie-in-the-sky cash that they got from somewhere else. It's your money. So how do we get out of it? Two things. The glib answer would be to say we need to vote better. But how we vote better, who do we vote for, those sort of voting decisions, that's a much, much more difficult question to answer. And two, the Leviathan that is the Kenyan government, in my opinion, needs to be starved of a significant amount of resources, because the amount of cash that we do give them, 2.3 trillion shillings of your taxes last year, enormous amounts of it get wasted or they're being spent improperly. And tech can be part of the solution, but tech can also be circumvented by individuals. So don't take my word for it. Here's a simple example. Kenya Railways. It's not a company we often cover, right? Does anyone want to guess what their losses were last year? Anyone? Give me a number. Nope, much higher. Go on, keep Kenya Railways. It was more than $1 billion. Go on, give me another number. Nope, higher. Nope, higher. Nope. 50 billion. Kenya Railways in fiscal 23-24 and 22-23 has lost 80 billion shillings consecutively. Because the operational costs, if you add operational costs and finance costs, they simply can't cover all of it. It's not a financially viable enterprise. Now, the bigger question I know you're going to ask is, why wasn't this covered properly, right? And the answer to that is this. And again, don't take my word for it. Go to their website and look at the last annual report that they put up. And I'm willing to bet you it's from pre-pandemic. But by law, if you look at the Kenya Railways Act, by law, I think it's within 9 months or a year of the end of the financial year, which is in June, they have to make their finances public, right? They have to account to you as taxpayers. We did this sort of business, we moved cargo from point A to point B, we moved passengers from point A to point B. This is how much we made on SGR, this is how much we made on NGR. These are our costs in terms of funding, or rather paying our debts back to the Exim Bank of China, paying employees, etc., etc. They have to do that by law. But for years, they have gotten away with non-disclosure. And ultimately, it comes back down to us as government and us as a people doing the right thing. And it's boring, it's not Instagrammable, right? We're not going to be seeing posts on politicians' IG profiles and Facebook where they're talking about how, oh, you know, I signed off on I was discussing the audited accounts for Kenya Railways with the Kenya Railways MD. It's not going to happen, right? It's not Instagrammable. The sensible, right thing will be mundane, it'll be boring, but it needs to be done. And right now, the Kenyan state is simply not doing enough of that for us. Now, how we get to that point, that's a much more tricky question. I'm sure we can organize a separate discussion around it. I think we're coming relatively close to the end of our session, so I've got room for, yes, just one. Is that working? All right.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. My name is Letitia. I'm a product owner at a research company in Kenya. I want to follow up on what he said and also this last discussion. I think there was a strong emphasis on sort of individual upscaling, but I want to push back a little bit as a question to you. Recently, there was a local international company, that wanted to bring in an export consultant to do a job which they claim that there was an existent local talent for that. I strongly feel, I think from the conversation here, somebody say they want to build AI workflows for cash flows. And what if, I feel like if companies can upskill their talent or their employees to actually, I don't know, for example, build agentic workflows that actually streamline the challenges that you have, that there would be a higher return on value for your work. And two, instead of just picking, I think what people are thinking, sort of just going online and picking AI tools, I feel like the business are missing an opportunity to actually innovate, because you know your problems, and therefore if you invest in your employees to actually build solutions that solve your problems, that's more valuable than just, picking someone to just come and solve. So I think it's a question to you, and I'm also like to everyone else. There's emphasis on individual learning, but don't you feel you are losing out on you're losing out on opportunities by not actually prioritizing investment on your on the talent that you have or on the employees that you have to actually solve your problems using AI instead of just relying on pick and carry solutions? Thanks.
Thank you for your question. I think what we agreed up here was that it's both, that wherever possible, the business would offer training and upskilling on the different roles, but that, just like he said, moving forward, the responsibility on the self for continual learning is going to be a huge part of having a career in this country and across the world. I think that's just the main takeout we had. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything.
I'm a millennial, and I'm on the top end of being a millennial. So when I'm hearing you answering that question, I'm thinking to myself, I would answer it according to the generation that's in my organization, because there's a lack of, okay, if I'm hiring an older person, and we had this conversation in our office the other day of how there was a whole, somebody had written on LinkedIn how they're hiring over 35s now in the organization. Did any of you guys read that? No? Yeah, and there's a whole conversation from an HR professional saying why they're getting more and more requests to hire older people within their organization. And that's where I'll now speak directly to Gen Zs. Yeah, relationships are reciprocal. Yeah, so we give and you take. So you don't want to come and work in the office. You don't want to be monitored on how well you're working, but you want to deliver with your own timelines. But also, you want us to invest in you for long term, so that our organizations can grow. You can see the conversation. It's like we're not connecting. In our times when we used to be hired, and I think even it's still there, even in, especially like, let's say, hospitals, where if a doctor comes in with, one level of learning, they can be bonded to that hospital, and the hospital will invest in them upskilling, but they have to come back home and work for a few years so that that institution can recoup its investment. So there's a whole trust issue happening there. Now, if we can't even have a level of trust where we're just delivering on a small project, yeah, then how then do you expect an institution, which is ultimately being run by a human being, to then trust you long term? So we meet each other halfway, So we give you all the tools you need for you to upskill, and for then us to use that knowledge, if you are so generous as to share it with us, to build our businesses. So that's now what's happening when it comes to the intergenerational working environment that is currently there. Having said that, when we talk about, we would love to create tools within our own work environment. Of course, that's an ideal case scenario. So we're investing in you. You then come up and say, hey, I've discovered this tool. We come up with an agreement, because you will not sell that solution to me unless I give you a revenue share model. Yet it's being designed for the business that I'm working in. So there's a lot of things happening, I would say, in that space, and it really depends on the size of the organization. And we are even seeing huge organizations that have large investments in AI. coming up with models where before tech was not allowed to be doing anything else, they're now coming into encouraging tech support to start their own startups so that there's a level of innovation happening within the company. And if they're successful, maybe the company will own a bit of equity in that investment, and it'll still benefit the company as well as benefiting the institution. So we're not saying that we will not invest. We're just saying what it looks like is slightly different.
Sure. If I could add anything, it's just as the employer who wants to get that training or wants that upskilling sponsored or paid for by the company, be very intentional and also put yourself in the shoes of whoever you're asking to make that investment in you. So if you're going to, for example, if I can use that situation I was in, one of my team members wanted to do a diploma, and I was like, that's fine. The company can't afford it, but I'll see what I can do individually. And that comes with not just the financial cost, but it comes with days that are being missed because of exams, the days that are being missed so they can study for those exams. And there's a responsibility that needs to be understood from both the employer side and the employee side. You need to be very sure what you're asking for and make sure that you can commit, because no business will pay for you to do a course and you fail that course. That's money down the drain. So as you're doing that course, you need to be very intentional, and you need to understand exactly what you're asking for, because it's a lot more than money. It's that trust, it's that credibility between yourself and your employer that might even go beyond the employment that the two of you have.
Yep, and to wrap it up, I'll just say, I agree with your point that as businesses, we need to be the ones to invest in our pool of talent to get them to be better, so that we're not hiring experts from outside the country to do things that some of our very talented people could possibly do, and that the general consensus here is that where we can, we will do it, but it only works if it comes from passion from the person who wants this thing. Let me give an example. Last year, we had some crisis in the business as a result of scaling, where there's a lot of work, some things are not moving as planned. So where we generally have like, at the time we were doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday work from office, Tuesday, Thursday work from home. We then brought everyone back to work from the office from the month of June to the month of August. Actually, April to August was 4 months. And of course, with that time, you could see some of the high performers, they're not very happy because why are you bringing me back? Yet it's not my fault that the project is not moving. Me, I've been doing my things. I have all these email threads, the internal Slack channel, you can see everything I've been doing. Then after that period, what we then went to is a more case-by-case basis. So we brought back work from home after everything, the ship was steady. And now we go to the office 1 to 2 times a week. But then, 1 to 3 times a week. Then you have some high performers who only come for the Monday meeting. But when you look at all the work they do, all their channels, they're totally okay. So it has to come from you in terms of your efficiency, and that then makes the business want to support you further than what is generally available to everyone. And a final thing is something I learned from Peter Ndwati around 2017, 2018, is even a quote that he used to have as his WhatsApp status. I haven't checked if it's still there, but it says, if it is to be, it's up to me. Thanks.
All right. Have we decompressed a bit? Our chests a bit lighter? We have tumesema yote metutoka. Unfortunately, I have to respect the clock. The clock says the program has to move on. But we'll be here for the remainder of the session, so I'm sure there'll be conversations that will continue. Ladies and gentlemen, please, a round of applause for our panelists. The only thing I will say in closing is, again, ChatGPT is fantastic, but it's not a replacement for therapy. Okay? And the advantage of being here is Nasieku therapy is right here. Okay? So please talk to her. All right? Thank you. On to the next one.